Hi guys, Mr. Jaeger here. I had set up this in anticipation of a presentation or demos, but still, welcome back to the IAE. This is the second day, and it is Aegis Day. Yes, Aegis. Wonderful, very wonderful. So yes, we return for the second day of the IAE Expo. A little bit of an update. Good news, everyone. There was a large-ish patch. Motherfucking litterbugs. There was a large-ish patch when I started up this morning, and it looked to be, at the time of the recording, which is like the 19th, it looked to be that they've not fixed it completely because there were points where the frames were still a bit chuggy, but vastly better than it was before because it wasn't a slideshow. So, props. Good job, CIG. Big thumbs up. You done good. You done good. So today is Aegis Day, unlike previous day, which was Alien Day. Today is day that I can actually talk about ships because I've used them more, which is fantastic. And also, we get to have a nice look at some of the rather nice little ships out there. Actually, to be fair, let's actually have a look at the new... Yes. Oh, yeah, we've got a full platter today. We've got the Reclaimer, the Hammerhead, the Vanguard. Oh, we have all of these things. Wondrous. And, of course, our usual array of other ships as well. So, you know, same stuff as before when it comes to the... I think, to be fair, the Aegis... I think, just with the exception of the bloody Reclaimer, all the other ships we've seen in blood. Oh, good. It's fine. We may see them in IAE, but that doesn't mean we don't talk about them here. So that's fine. We're going to hop... Oh, fucking litterbugs. Seriously. They even mention it on the bloody stand. Don't litter. Honestly. You fucking players are animals. But yes, we're here on Aegis Day, and we'll be having a good old look around. We're probably going to go through a number of the vehicles over here. I will go through the Reclaimer, but that will take some time. So this episode's probably going to be a bit of a lengthy one, but I hope if you guys are enjoying this already, you've done this for 4 years, you know exactly how we roll. So, without further ado, I only just noticed that thing on the top there. That's actually pretty cool. Anyway, so without further ado, let's get started on Aegis Day, right after I get my character some food and drink. Bins are there for a reason. Don't be a litterbug. So, we begin our journey on Aegis Day by looking at two very nice looking fighters, and I'm not going to lie, I'm kind of tempted into getting one of these, to be fair. I'm, of course, talking about the Saber and the Saber Comet. Now, just before we get into it, I'm going to be trying something a little different this year. Previously, I tried to rely on either Star Citizen tools or maybe just my own general knowledge when it comes to ships, which obviously can be unreliable. But what I'm instead going to be utilizing for this particular session and going forward is what's known as the Urol website. It's basically DPS calculator for Star Citizen. Basically what this website does, I'll provide a link down below in the description as well, so if you want to have a look at it. But basically, what this website does is it takes all of the ships in the Star Citizen game and their components from the stock values and allows you to tweak the different values to see if you can get the most out of your ship, be it DPS, be it power, be it cooling, be it whatever. And I'm utilizing this because it does, obviously, it's the latest up-to-date stats on the ship, and it allows me to finally talk to you with confidence what size guns and what kind of ships are, in fact, pretty good or pretty not. So when I talk about these particular ships, I'm going to be talking about their stock values. So, obviously, these ships can be upgraded and changed, but it's something that, and I also recommend this website for anyone who's sort of interested in Star Citizen ships. It is a really good website for that. Not sponsored or anything like that. I'm just going to say it's a really handy tool to have, which I very much like. So, going back to the Saber. So the Saber is, in the classifications for this particular website, and to be fair, I would agree, but slightly, this is a stealth-esque fighter. It's not a hard-hitting fighter. It's not a fighter that you go around duking out, like, say, the F8 Lightning, but it's not a lightweight fighter either. It's not like the Arrow, where you need to look at it with a relatively hard rock and it'll break into 1,000 pieces. It is a very, very... I'd say it's a hit-and-run fighter, personally speaking. It's got beautiful design to it. I do love the design of the Saber. It's one of the main reasons why I want to have it, is because it looks so sleek and so... Ooh, you know, it just has that flair to it. And in terms of weaponry, it also comes with some pretty decent weapons to start with. Size 3 Panther repeaters, or the official terminology is CF337 Panther. These repeating blasters are beautiful because, as I may have mentioned in the previous episode, they have good amount of damage and they have a decent amount of energy, which allows for a decent amount of ammunition, which... As a weapons go, that's something you really want to have inside a ship such as this, which is pretty neat. In other types of weapons that you have access to on the Saber is a couple of four size 3A missiles. Arrestor 3s and Thunderbolt 3s as well. So 4 missiles, not a bad array of weapons, which is pretty dope. Internally, also, the ship is not great when it comes to upper visuals on this particular perspective, but the frontal visuals looks really nice, and it's also quite sort of also it feels quite tucked in. I mean, the main essence of this ship is meant to be you zip in, you shoot, you zip out. It's not a sort of a heavy fighter. It's not meant to sort of fulfill those particular roles. But what is nice, at least in part, is it also passes what I call the MFD test, which, to be fair, probably should have mentioned that in the previous episode, but considering it was a lot of alien ships in there, not great when it comes to Xeno ships. But what I can say is this ship sort of does well with the MFD test. What do I mean by that? Well, basically, whenever I look into a ship that I've never flown into, if I can see all of the MFDs in the first, without needing to look around, like to manually look down into them, then that's like a minor point towards the ship being good. This particular ship half passes the MFD test, which means it doesn't really pass the test because I have 2 other big MFDs here that I could use for important stuff, but unfortunately it doesn't work like that. So what I'd have to do is I'd have to tweak the MFDs to be able to get them to the settings that I want. If I had something like Track IR or VR, different story, because obviously you can glance down and back up again, whereas with Star Citizen you have to manually press the Z key and then look back up again. So it's not the greatest of sort of systems, but it's not bad for that. So as fighters go, I've not seen much of this ship outside of the IAE. There are pilots who swear by this ship, and I will agree, it does look very, very nice. I just like my favorite thing about it is the aesthetics. It looks pretty cool. It also is slightly bigger than the small ships, which I tried using the Arrow once, and it's like, it's fun, it's enjoyable, but it's not for me because it's way too fucking fast. Like, it's way too nimble, way too fast, and I couldn't control it. Whereas a ship like this, as solo fighters go, yeah, I'm down for that. I would say this is when a ship becomes something that I would enjoy and respect. Now, going from one classic to the other, this is the Saber Comet. Now, for years I was given a bit of a bad rep story for this ship. It was apparently shit from the get-go. It was mainly designed for stealth, so the stealth components aren't great. It doesn't really work that fast. All sorts of things. And the only real sort of saving grace was the fact that it had a slightly better looking skin than, let's say, other jars. Well, when you compare it in, for example, Cool, you'll actually find that the main difference in terms of components between the Saber Comet and the Saber itself is that the Saber has a better power generation. So if you were to get the Saber Comet, you may need to either get the ones from the Saber, or you may need to improve the power generation side of things. However, you might actually need to go in terms for cooling systems to the Saber Comet, because the Saber Comet has better cooling systems in play. And it also has a different, what I was meant to say, is it has a different tinting to the glass window, which, I'm not going to lie, does look nice. I do like the blue. The red is cool, but the blue looks smooth. So it's really hard to say. But no, in terms of aesthetics, I do like the camo system. It does make it a bit vulnerable if you're not on an ice world, for example. But at this point, if you're relying on visual confirmation of target, you're not playing this game right, because you'll probably pick up this thing on the scanners more than anything. You just don't rely on stealth in the same way anymore. I mean, sure, if you want to hide it, maybe it might work that way, but I don't think that's how it works nowadays, mostly. I'm not a PvPer, I wouldn't know, but if any ship has been able to hide because of its mesh, then brilliant, but I've yet to hear that. The only thing I would say that is a genuine disadvantage, which is something to be aware of, is the pyroburst weapons. The other weapons on this ship, which are different from the repeaters, these are the Omniski 9s. They have 19 shots instead of the 23 shots from the Panther repeaters, so you could argue, but this is where this weapon's DPS is worse because it has less shots, but the Omniski 9 does more damage per shot than the, by actually quite a large amount. The CF-37 Panthers do 153 sustained DPS, whereas the Omniskis do 234 sustained DPS. And the only shot difference is about 4-ish rounds, so 4 rounds less, but does almost 120 more damage, is it's pretty nice, to be brutally honest with you. So that is an advantage to the Saber Comet. But I will agree, these weapons, the Pyrobursts, are a bit shit. Only having 4 shots per round, and only doing 160 rounds. And bearing in mind, it's a shotgun in space. You're not going to need a shotgun in space. It's kind of impossible to do that. So if we were to do anything with this particular ship, I probably would change the ship's loadout so that I would have something a bit better. Maybe I would go with ballistics, perhaps, so that I could for example, I do the Omniskis to do the damage, and then I replace this with a ballistic, or I perhaps replace it with a Panther repeater, whichever personal particular vessel I would want to go with. But no, I actually have to admit, I'm getting more tempted looking at this ship now, I'm not gonna lie. But no, in terms of the ship's output, I would say in terms of stats alone, this ship could probably do pretty damn well, and in fact give the Saber a run for its money. So, you never know. I'm not gonna lie, I'm looking at this ship going, But still, it's, yeah. I don't know. I'd like to see whether... I think this ship may have gotten a bad rep, but I think as time goes by, bit by bit, it's going to do better. It's going to do better. So we enter into the second room, which is all about a couple of ships, one of which you may recognize as the penultimate fighter craft in Star Citizen, which is, of course, the Aegis Gladius. Now, I say this is the penultimate one because this particular ship, pretty much anyone who's even heard of Star Citizen has either seen the Squadron 42 trailers, especially recently, where we have, of course, I'll just close this door. There you go, there's the external component storage. But no, so this particular ship is quite famous because, obviously, the Squadron 42 ships from the trailers, as well as stuff that you see in like the main sort of trailers for Star Citizen. This ship is there. It is a very common sight. I think a lot of players who do PvP also utilize this ship as well. It's a mainstay of most PvP combat, and in terms of stock fighterness, it is also pretty decent. I mean, it has in terms of armament, it's got a Mantis, size 2... No, size 1? No, size 3. God, I really need to wear my glasses when I'm looking at the other screen, because the color is just blurry enough that I can't, but yeah. Size 3 Mantis with size 3 Panther M repeaters as well. So, these Panther repeaters, really good, solid repeaters. And, obviously, ballistics, which have a trade-off. The ballistics in Star Citizen have, for those who don't play, ballistics do more damage, and they can even pierce. And when you're shooting at a ship with shields on, the bullets will go, some of the bullets will go through the shield and do half damage to a ship. But the downside is that ballistics have limited amounts of ammunition, and they can be quite expensive to run if you are constantly in combat. So some players decide not to have a ballistics. Some players decide to commit on ballistics because it's like if you're in the combat for more than X amount of seconds, you're already dead. But, it's depending on how things are. It can, the importance of that can vary. And, of course, you have an assortment of missiles. So, for this particular ship, you have an Arrestor 3 missile. 2 Arrestor 3s and 4 Ignite 2s. So 2 size 3s and 4 size 2s, which obviously you can customize. You can have more size 2s or more size 3s, or less depending on how you want to go. But in terms of damage and output, this ship is pretty good from the ground up, which is very nice. In comparison to the Saber, I will agree also, if we have a look inside the ship, this ship does have a very good internal cockpit. Like, if we're looking in terms of visuals, you do have more of an open view than on the Saber. But this ship is a smaller ship. It doesn't have as much health, and it can die very quickly. So, obviously, that is something to be aware of. But everything else, it is pretty solid. And as I said, it's a fighter craft. Its sole purpose in life is to do nothing but duke it out. And as part of the PvP thing, oh yeah, it's defo. It's defo there, which is fair enough. So, going over to the other side, we are treated to another variant of the ship known as the Gladiator. Just going to quickly grab the litter because that bugs me. Anyway, so going over to the other side of the coin, you have a bit of an interesting variation. So instead of having, the Valiant, as it has, instead of having the size 3 Mantis on the front, instead you've got a size 3 Panther Repeater, and on the sides you've got some size 3 Omniski 9s. So you're completely energy based, and we have a different type of missile. This being the size 3 Viper 3. So two size 3 Viper 3s and 4 Pioneers, which are very small. So you have 8 Pioneers. These are very, very small missiles, but different armament. But in terms of the components, doesn't seem to be very different. It just seems to be a different stock weapon loadout. So, an interesting dependent. Obviously, you've got yourself a different skin in comparison to the bog standard one, but still, it's a nice looking vessel. And depending on your personal preference, you'll find this ship fulfills the role that you need it to do. I am not a huge I'm not like a hater of this ship. I owned it at one point. But I found that this kind of ship is not the kind of ship for me. I'm not much of a... It's not the kind of ship I would personally go out my way to get, put it that way. It's definitely a ship that I think I'll see plenty of times, and I may even kill a few times. The pirates of the universe also have their hands on this. It's not as common, but you do get occasional pirates utilizing the Gladius as well. But regardless, I think if you're a new Star Citizen player and you want a solid fighter frame, then this is most definitely a good one for it. So, let's have a look at the big boy in the room, shall we? To round out this room, we of course need to have a look at the Hammerhead. Now, if anyone was to ask me what multi-crew in Star Citizen is like, I would describe my experiences through this ship, the Aegis Hammerhead. Now, the Aegis Hammerhead is a bit of an old girl now. She's been in the game for quite a while. I remember it was around Jumptown when she was relatively new, and she definitely made an impact, for damn sure. Basically, the Hammerhead is pretty much a gunboat, and quite a literal and that is quite a literal description, as although she hasn't got any offensive armaments to the pilot, she does have 6 turrets with quad size 4 Rhino repeaters. So this is basically the Panther on steroids. These things are intense. And previously, before the ballistic changes were implemented, this vessel used to have all ballistics. It was fucking terrifying. Yes, this thing was a nightmare fuel zone for any ship that was coming in towards it. And I think even on the rare occasions where if you can have, for example, replace all of the turrets with the BD series of autocannon, of Gatling guns, which, to be fair, the BD series is probably one of the best you could get. So, if you could run this ship with BD guns, oh my fucking Christ, it's terrifying. And in addition to the the weapons, well, laser cannon-wise, you do get some missiles. I maybe should correct myself. The pilot doesn't have, projectile weapon offensive capabilities, but you do get missile capabilities. 32 size 3 missiles, 16 being Arrestor 3s, and 16 being, what's they called again? Arrestors and Viper 3s. So you have 16 Viper 3s and 16 Arrestor 3s. Very, very, very powerful missiles. And if you can spam them, oh boy. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. So you can see on the side panels you can access the two different turrets, well, the two different turrets on each particular side. But if you wanted to see access where the other turrets are, then you'll need to hop over to... You'll need to hop over inside to have a better look for this one. To be fair, in terms of multi-crew gameplay, this is the kind of experience that if you're new to Star Citizen, and if your friend happens to have one, I'd say go and do some bounties in it, because it's a lot of fun, especially if you have like a crew of about 5 or 6 players. This is what I would call the best multi-crew ship in the game, in my opinion. I know the Redeemer is there, which we will talk about, but I think in terms of bang for buck, you're going to find that this ship is probably more enjoyable because you can get more people involved, and it's quite the big definitive thing. You also have a cargo bay inside for ground vehicles as well, so you can not only fly around shooting shit, but you can also fly around and have a lot more fun with that. And it has a really funky looking fusion generator thing. Not entirely sure if that's safe to stand around, but hey ho. So you can access the rearmost turret going down, and then if you're wanting to access the turret going up, because you have a rear mounted turret at the bottom which looks down under the ship, and then if we go over to head over to here, whereabouts is the turret? Ah, yes. And then here is the turret guns that goes upwards as well. So it's a very, very nice looking ship. And I also have a bit of a thing for this ship in terms of like how the bridge works, because I mean, as you can see, it is an absolutely beautiful design internally. But there is one thing that this ship has that ever since I played Halo Wars, I have always wanted to have a ship that does that does this particular thing, which if we get inside the ship, you'll see in a second. So here is the bridge. Not very impressive if you look at it in terms of like, oh, it's quite small. But there is one thing you can do on this. You can stand over a planet. And if you do this, you're standing over a planet, or crouching over a planet, looking down. Now, when I played Halo Wars for the first time, I saw there was a cutscene where the captain was standing over a planet, over Harvest, introduced, when the whole campaign was being introduced. And ever since then, I've always wanted to have a ship that gave me the ability to do this. The Carrack kind of does this as well, but when I saw the Hammerhead doing this for the first time, I was like, it's amazing! So I'm hoping we can have another ship which has a larger component that isn't sort of wedging yourself into the corner there. But in terms of visuals, you do get quite the phenomenal view. And, of course, if you're wanting to land, you can see the ground below you rather evenly as well, which is fantastic. I do like it. So, big props to this ship for having that, and it is a particular crush of mine. So, Hammerheads, they are fantastic multi-crew vessels, and there's a second floor of this. I mean, I'm literally breezing through this, but there's a second floor that you can access that will take you up to, like, the crew compartment and quarters, and it is a really good ship, and I'm looking forward when Pyro does come out, because obviously the area around Pyro is quite, lawless. So you could easily do missions where you are flying into the zone, preparing for having major contact and dealing with whoever and wherever. And I think that will be a really good experience to play for Star Citizen, because obviously you've got a group of experienced gunners with an experienced pilot going into the nullsec. What else could make for a fun experience? So we enter into the second room, this being the room of, I'm going to call it the room of doom if done right. Now what I mean by that is these two ships in particular have access to some of the most powerful weapons fielded in the game at the moment. I am of course talking about torpedoes. And these torpedoes will slap you royally. Now, can I see them from the inside, or do I need to get this from the outside? No, I think I'm going to have to open it up. But still, so this we'll start with the ship as I went up to it first. This is the Aegis Eclipse, been around for quite a while. This is effectively the B-2 stealth bomber, or the F-1117 Nighthawk, I think is the correct terminology for that modern one. Though I think I lean more towards B2 because it's a little wider and less pointed. It's less angled. This one's like more of a B2, so in my opinion. So what makes this ship so special? Well, it has access, apart from having itself being designed as a stealth ship, it has access to 3 size 9 torpedoes known as the Argos 9, effectively. I mean, as the game very mindedly decides, yeah, there has a whole host of different things. So, in terms of visuals, the ship does look nice. I do like the aesthetics, especially the cockpit. Especially, I fucking love it. It passes the MFD test, which is something I should probably have mentioned in previous things as well. But one of the things that I like about a thing that I sort of look for when I fly a ship for the first time is where's all the MFDs? Where are all the little, interactable consoles that allow me to see the status of my ship, what weapons I've got available, what targets there are, all sorts of things. For my immediate requirements. And if a ship has all of these particular ships without me requiring to look down or to have a track IR to make me look down, that passes a test, which makes the ship, in my opinion, a little better to use. Now, I'm wondering, because if I select this, there we go. So as you can see, hello. So as you can see, the size 9 arrestor torpedo is pretty hench. Like, let's not beat around the bush. This thing is absolutely ridiculous in terms of its DPS output. Like, so if we're looking, at the stats of if we're looking on the website for Urol, the damage stats of an Argos 9 torpedo is 791,000. It is fucking lethal. Most ships, when hit with this thing, will die. And to be fair, with the whole soft death and hard death sort of thing, I'm fairly convinced that a ship will just fucking explode into millions of pieces if hit by this thing. So, yeah, no, this thing is lethal, and most definitely is a ship to be cautioned with. It's not a ship to be fucked around with too much. I partly want to get one of these things, to be fair. Like, I'm looking at the ship, and an impulse is making me want to buy one of these things, but we'll see. But the thing is, as much as I talk about the wonders of the size 9 torpedo, I will highlight very strongly, this thing is dead. I mean, I'm not talking like, oh, it's going to suffer extreme damage and you may get out, you might not get out. No, this thing is fucked with a capital F if someone spots it. And to add extra insult to injury, I have killed one of these things in a Valkyrie. The drop ship, the not really a fighter sort of ship, but we were able to shoot one of these Eclipse down. Like, if you are not good, if you're not shit hot as a pilot, you will die extremely quickly in this environment, in that ship. And God save you if you miss all of your torpedoes. In terms of armament, the other parts of armament is, once again, our good old friends, the size... Well, it's not the Panther, it's the Badger repeater. Basically, the Panther is like the size 3. This is the size 2 Badger. So, but the CF series of laser repeaters are here. But that's about it. This is all of the self-defense armament you have. So, if you are caught out in the sticks, you're probably going to die. Not going to sugarcoat it. But if we go and have a look at the other side of the coin, this is the kind of ship which I don't think you'll immediately die if you're spotted, but it is going to need extreme cover. Oh, hello. Bit of a weird glitch, unless that's cobwebs. And to be fair, I can't exactly blame it. I think it is cobwebs. Oh, fair enough. Oh, I'm covered. But no, this is, of course, the Retaliator. Now, to be fair to this ship, it's not actually meant to be... It's not specifically a torpedo-esque bomber. It's actually... The Retaliator is actually one of those well, the ships that can have multiple options. But the big option in this particular case is the fact that this ship has access to 6 size 9 torpedoes. So yeah, these things are immense. Are you using... Hang on. Right, for a second there, sorry, I thought for a second that the quantum engine was on. I'm like, how the fuck did you get that working? But anyway, so the main armament of this ship is primarily size 9 torpedoes. It does have a few turrets utilizing size 2 and size 3 CF series of like the Badgers and the Panther repeaters. So in terms of armament, it's got a reasonable component. You know, it's got some reasonable defenses, but the pilot doesn't have access to any real defenses except, of course, the missiles. And obviously, with a torpedo, like with missiles, not all of them work at the same time, so it can be problematic, shall I say, when it comes to doing damage and everything else. But if you're running some sort of high-level bounty missions, having these torpedoes may in fact be a good idea, but that also may need to be a bit solo as well. Hello, fellow citizen. What have you got? What the fuck is that you have there? What is that? Oh, it's a custodian with a suppressor. I had not seen that version before. Well, that's a new thing for me. But yes, so this ship is, again, less immensely fucked if it's spotted, and you do have the ability to defend yourself if you have some turrets, people who man the turrets with you. But it's a torpedo boat. They're not exactly designed. They're not exactly designed to duke it out. If I had to say which of the two are, in my opinion, probably more enjoyable to fly, I would probably go with the Eclipse, simply because it's a stealth fighter, you can fuck around with it, and it also is far more... It's a little bit more obscure than, say, the Retaliator, but there are downsides to both sides. But still... 2 very good vessels, which, depending on the circumstances, could make the difference between you getting a pretty awesome kill or you getting your ass handed to and everyone laughing at you. So, as we enter into the Vanguard Room, yes, this is the Vanguard Room, and I want to call this the Room of Doom with a good view, because, oh my, these are very, very nice looking ships. So, we're going to be going through all of them. And to be fair, that can actually also offer some practicable advice, because I own one of these vessels, and you'll have to try and guess which one, judging on how I talk about it. A little fun game there. So the first ships we're going to be looking into, of course, will be on the left side. So this one being the Vanguard Harbinger, or Harbinger. I used to call it the Hellbringer because for some reason I couldn't pronounce the words effectively enough. This is the bomber slash sort of sledgehammer assault is what I'm going to dub this vessel as. This particular vessel is all about fuck you and everything around you. And in terms of that, it does its job fairly well. It's a bit of a heavy bastard to fly, and it most certainly does pack a punch. It's got a size 4... What's it called? I'm having to look into the thing. So in terms of the weapon, it's known as a C788, which is basically a big old ballistic cannon, but it's only a size 4. One of the things that I will say that most of the Vanguard series have is a Varipuck size 5 gimbal, which means this vessel can easily mount a fixed size 5 weapon. And, oh, we take advantage of that fact really fucking well. In terms of firepower, though, this weapon, if we're going off just stock values, this weapon is pretty good. When it hits, it slaps. It's a very powerful weapon, and it can most definitely do it can definitely slap rather well. Is it a practicable weapon? Not really. It's a very slow-firing weapon, and it doesn't have a huge amount of ammunition, and it will need to be topped up, as, of course, it is ballistic. For the weapons at the front, these little things here, these are size 2 CVSAs. Once again, ballistic ammunition. These are the nose gun mount sort of things, which can be quite powerful and can be quite useful. However, they are ballistic, so you'll need to rearm themselves. So, again, not a great advantage for the Hellbringer, admittedly, because you're completely dependent on ballistics. which can, if you can get your shots on target, be a saving grace, but will cause you lots of pain if you don't. Going over to the missile side of things, you have a nice variety of different weapons. You have Ignite 2s, so you have 4. Let me have a look, see. So 4 Ignite 2s, and you have 4 Arrest 3s and 4 Dominator 2s. So you have a nice cross-section of missiles. Not all of them are, so you've got some of the big ones, you've got some of the small ones, so not a bad cross-section of missiles. I personally prefer to just have one type of missile, but if you're a fan of multi-types of missiles, there you go. But the other big thing about this ship, which is quite fancy, is it has access to size 5 Stalker torpedoes. These are nice. They are, in my opinion, they are pretty much, with love. I always love this. I always fucking love this bit. But no, the size 5 torpedoes is the main sort of reason why the Harbinger exists. These weapons right here, you have 3 of them, and they can do quite a fair amount of damage. Would I say that makes this ship worth it, in my opinion? No, not really. It's not something that... It's quite heavy. The different weapons and armaments means that this ship is quite heavy to fly around with. It's very slow. It's not very ergonomic or mobile, agile in terms of a fighter. So you're less likely to enjoy this vessel, even though it does have a very nice internal combat bay. You got your shit shaft. Whoa! I have fallen into the ship. And I've fallen out of the ship. It does... I'm talking bad about it, and it's like, oh, fuck you then. But still. So, in terms of defense as well, this ship also is a multi-crew ship. It has, one other crew member, but I would still count that as a thing. You have what's known as 2 Jericho size 3 XLs, which I think are cannons. I've not seen many of these things. Again, I think these are also ballistics. So, oh no, they're rocket pods. Oh dear, that's why I didn't recognize it. They're rocket pods. Which is, I can't zoom in on them, unfortunately, without dying in frames. But yeah, not the best of turret situations. So, the Harbinger, it's very, very pleasant, but at the same time, not really that good in terms of that role. But you know what? It's fine. Size 5 torpedoes, pretty good. Still has a pretty decent armament. Not a bad vessel. So what is the next vessel that we look at? This is the Hoplite. This is the troop transport variant of the Vanguard series. Though, to be fair, I'm going to add a bit of a caveat to that. I don't think this is probably the best ship for troop transport. In terms of weapon armaments, coming in terms of stock, you have a different array of weapons. This time, you have a size 4 Revenant on a size 5 puck gimbal mount, and for the size 2 nose-mounted guns, these are Energy BVRS laser cannons. So now we're starting to see some variety towards weaponry, and we're also starting to see some benefits, because obviously the Revenant, it's a minigun. It does look absolutely incredible. It's kind of depressing in the sense that it's not that great. Like, the ammunition you get for the amount of damage it does is actually quite pitiful, and unfortunately, as a result, its use, it's very limited. It's one of those weapons that looks amazing, but actually is a bit shit, which is very sad. I'm not gonna lie. I am saddened whenever I have to see this weapon, because it looks amazing. But anyway, in terms of missiles, not as many missiles and in comparison to the Harbinger, so this does have a disadvantage in missile frontiers. Only 4 size 2 Ignite 2s and another 4 Dominator size 2s as well. The other 2 slots are empty, so maybe you can mount something, maybe you couldn't, I don't know. But I do know that you don't... God damn. As much as I find these voices irritating, I'm like, no, yeah, I'm not gonna lie, there are some good things. They do make some good points. But anyway, going into this particular ship, you can see it's not very big in terms of troop transportation. If anything, this is like maybe a fire team or a section. You know, like 6 guys. There's definitely weapons for more people. But at the same time, it's like, you know, it does the job. It's something that I just feel like yeah, it's not that great. It does the job. I don't think that this particular vessel, in terms of transportation of troops, yeah, no, there are better ships out there, dare I say, even the Cutlass Black, who could potentially transport more troops in terms of that. But you know what? This particular vessel, it does the job, and I think it will do some pretty wonderful things. In terms of defense on the turret side, you instead have what's known as the Size 2, long name here, SW-16BR2 Sawbuck, which looks, yes, so the Sawbuck weapons are, once again, energy repeaters. So this ship, learning from the Harbinger, you cannot survive with just ballistics alone. You do need to go with a few bit of a mixture. But overall, the hoplite I do like. Now, some people will say, oh, you should say hoplite because that's what the word says. But the Greek version and also how it's actually been pronounced is hoplite, and you are now will die standing on that hill, because that is how you say the word hoplite, because they said it in that time, I'm saying it in this time. And it also sounds so much better. So, as we enter into the second half of the room, we are greeted by one of the nicest looking versions, in my opinion, of the Vanguard series, which is, of course, the Sentinel. Oh, fuck you, game. You are not going to talk shit about the Sentinel. Seriously. Fuck you, game. You are not talking shit about this ship. This is the Sentinel. It comes with its own variety, with its own variant of armament. This being, of course, the Size 4 Attrition 4. I like it when games just guns and shit just seems nice and smooth. But when it comes to the weapon for the Attrition, there's actually a bit of a unique property towards this vessel. This is, of course, coming from Hurston Dynamics, which, of course, I'm not a huge fan of Hurston Dynamics because of what they do to the planet and the surrounding things and Aberdeen. But what I won't deny they are good at is making weapons. And the Attritions are quite famous because, and obviously if I am incorrect, feel free to correct me in the comment section down below. But basically, the Attritions have the unique property that the more they fire, the more damage they do, the hotter they get, the more damage they do. And these weapons were absolutely lethal at one point. These were the main meta of most vessels in Star Citizen. I don't know if they still are, in fact, the main meta now, but I will say they look the part, they feel the part, and obviously, if they do work the way they intend, then oh my fucking Christ, that looks awesome. I do. I own one of these things. Still guessing. So the other weapons we have our access to are the ATVSs. So these particular versions, of course, are size 2s, and once again are all energy based. Now the reason why this particular version is the way that is because this is a kind of ship that the Advocacy, also known as the police force of the UEE, utilizes this vehicle for its role. And I don't exactly blame them, because can you, seriously? And also, look at this interior. I fucking love this interior. It's all soft blues with this beautiful graph and display. Oh my god, I want this in my ship. I want this. It's beautiful. I love it. It's fantastic. It is so sexy. And it's a beautiful display of all the different all the different components, the technical things. This is also an engineer station as well, so at some point I believe we can even have the point where you can access this screen, and you can obviously go DACA with all of the electronics and whatnot. The other kind of weapons you have in terms of missiles and the like, of course, are in terms of missiles, you have the Ignite size 2s, the Dominator size 2s, once again, 4 of each of those, and you have 4 Arrestor 3s. So, again, standard fare of armament. But the thing that makes this ship unique is the fact that it has an EMP generator. Now this, at the current moment, is probably one of the meta-heavy fighters out there due to the fact that it does have this EMP factor. Eventually, however, CIG have promised some nerfs are coming into the ship's fray to make it slightly less good than the Warden, but we'll go into those little details a bit later. But the main sort of thing to say is that this vessel has an EMP generator, which will, as the term EMP describes, it fucks with electronics of any other vessel, making them unable to have their shields charged and for them to be able to do anything about it, which, you know, as a ship that's designed to arrest people, makes a lot of sense. On the turret side of things, you have what's known as the sucker punch weapons as well, which I do believe they are less. I think these particular guns are designed to knock out shields, making it easier for someone to nuke it. But in terms of stock values, they are pretty okay weapons on that one. So overall, I do like the Sentinel a lot. I do find it to be a very sexy looking ship. But if I had to say the ship that I own, that's right, baby, it's the Warden. This thing is fucking divine. This, if I had to say, you know, I have to be cocky, I would say this is the superior version. And I'm not saying this because it's the one I own, but it's because this is the definitive heavy fighter variant. This thing has the same armament as the Hoplite, size 4 in terms of stock value. The Revenant size 4, but it also has the MVSAs, which are the best, best bang for your buck when it comes to energy weapons for size 2. These things are absolutely fantastic and do a shit ton of damage, and I also have a pretty reasonable, pretty decent amount of ammunition as well per shot. So they are very, very good in terms of damage, and they come stock, which is even better. In terms of missiles, of course, you have the standard array: 4 Ignites 2s, 4 Dominator 2s, followed by 4 Arrestor 3s, and of course, you have a whole host of things. And of course, for the turret, you have what's known as the Sawbuck, which is the same kind of thing, or the same turret as other versions as well. But the thing that makes this ship really awesome is that, of course, its components, its combat system, it is a dedicated heavy fighter / reconnaissance vessel. The only downside is that it is very ugly in the middle. I wish I could have the interior of the Sentinel in this, and I would be fucking set permanently. I don't mind not having the EMP effect. I'm happy not to have an EMP effect. Just give me the internal system of the Sentinel. Like, none of the functionality of it, sure, but the aesthetics of it, my fucking god, I would love this ship even more than I do now. This particular ship has a bit of a story. Whoa, okay, the toilet is not a safe place to stand, apparently. God, can you imagine doing that? I mean, to be fair, this is the showroom edition, where the ship is set to a particular mode, so that's why it's able to be in this environment, because can you imagine people flying around in the vessel in these things? I mean, come on. You got to have some expectations. But no, a little bit of a story with this one, because when I was starting in Star Citizen properly in 2018, I was sort of getting used to the game. I was sort of trying to learn a few things, trying to see what the game was like. And a certain someone, I won't mention his name, but I will forever curse it, because the bastard showed up whilst I was getting used to playing the game, and I was really bad knowledge on ships in Star Citizen. I was like even worse than I was when I was in 2019. And he basically flew this ship over Port Olisar, and my eyes popped in my sockets. I was like, what is that? And he's like, oh, this thing. Well, you know, it's just a Vanguard Warden. And I'm like, that's a really cool looking ship. He's like, oh yeah, no, it's really good. And then he said the words that I'm forever cursing him for. Do you want to get in the turret? Oh god, because of course that meant I could get into the ship, which then means I could see him flying around in it, and ever since then I have been cursed, and I had to own this ship, and I did own this ship for a time. Then I got rid of it because I thought I wasn't going to use anything else, and then after many years of not having it, I kind of was like, I kind of want it again, and I did. And so now I'm forever cursed to never be able to separate myself from the Aegis Vanguard Warden. And what's worse is I've done the research towards upgrading it. So not only do I have a very good vessel from the stock variant, I've upgraded it with all of the other, like the better components, better power, better cooling, better weapons. I've removed the puck, so I've now got the BD5B minigun, which is fucking lethal. I've replaced the 2 turrets on the turreted with the CF repeaters. I've got better I've decked it out completely, and I'm cursed now because I can't look at any other ship in that regard the same way. It's just too good of a ship. So as we enter into the last sort of mini hall before we look at the Reclaimer, we are greeted by a sight to behold. First of all, we have a sight of the first and probably the best option for someone who wants to get into Star Citizen. And we then have an option for an alternative form of multi-crew gameplay, which, I won't lie, could be a challenger for like a smaller crew, definitely for a smaller amount of friends, but could be the next best representation for multi-crew gameplay in Star Citizen. But first, let's talk about the best starter ship in the game. Now, a lot of players out there will have their own preferences on ships. They think that the Gladius is the best fighter's thing. No, the Arrow's the best fighter. You'll have people say that the Prospector is the best mining vessel because it's a single-seater. You can have... it'll give you the best kind of overall experience. It's easy to use. It's very quick to use. You don't have to fanny around. But then some people say the Mole is better. You can talk about transport ships till the cows come home, especially with all the new ships that have come out. But universally speaking, every player, when you ask the question, what's the best ship to start with, they will say the Titan Avenger. This ship is, not just in my opinion, I'm going to say as a fact, it is the best starter ship in the game. Why is this ship so good as a starter ship? Well, I'll explain. First of all, if you haven't noticed it already, it looks like a plane. It's one of those things that, for some people out there, it doesn't really matter, but for others, you may be coming from a flight sim, you may have played DCS World, you may be familiar with some things, but you may not have played many space games. The fact that this particular ship... Oh, nice, I didn't even notice that. That must be either new or I'm blind, possibly both. But this particular ship is the ship. This design of the ship means that when you're flying in both space and atmo, it performs and acts like a ship slash plane would, giving you that sense of familiarity that eases you into the Star Citizen universe. What else is really good? The weapon armaments. So all of the weapon armaments on this vessel are gimbaled, which means if you're a new player to Star Citizen, you are not going to be struggling because the ship gives you the ability to learn and ease you into the combat. You've got the size 3 Mantis GT220, which is a very nice size 3 sort of starter-up weapon. It's ballistic, sure, but it does have a pretty decent amount of ammunition for a small aircraft, and it also does have the ability to obviously have the gimbal be removed and you to replace it with a size 4. For the side weapons, you've got energy weapons. The CF badges return once again to sort of say hello and welcome to Star Citizen. So for a new player, this is a great opportunity to learn both about ballistics and energy weapons, and also teaching them about which is better, or giving them the experience to figure out for themselves what they enjoy, which is nice. The other thing they have access to is, of course, missiles. You have 4 missiles in total. 4 Ignite 2s, and... Oh, they're all Ignite 2s. Never mind, my apologies. I thought they had 2 variants. I'm so used to having a cross-section that finally when we have the same missile types, I fuck it up. But you have access to 4 size 2 missiles, which, for someone who's new to Star Citizen, it is quite an awesome, this particular thing is really useful because, again, something that if you're not used to Star Citizen, this thing has some pretty nice bonuses towards, teaching you how to use missiles. Here's the other benefit. So you have 2 ways of getting into the ship. First, from the front, which many ships have that option, but from the back with its own cargo bay. I cannot describe to you just how much of an important factor having your own cargo bay is towards learning how to play Star Citizen. You're going to be doing box missions. You're going to be exploring. You're going to be picking bodies up. You're going to be doing all the things because it's all new. You don't know what you're doing. Everything's fantastic. Having a ship with its own cargo bay is really fucking cool, and having that ability to just explore and to sort of and learn how the cargo bay works is really fantastic. And it has it's 8 SCU's worth of cargo, which is really, really cool because it means you could do small cargo. You could even experiment doing cargo missions. You have that ability from the get-go, and having that cargo bay that you walk up into gives you that sense of you are a space adventurer. Everyone knows when you play a space game, you have a ramp leading from the ship to the ground. That is a cool thing about space games that the Avenger Titan has access to. You then have your own living quarters, which is another benefit, and a bed, which of course when in this game you can log out of as well, which means if you're outside in the zone thinking to yourself, oh, I can't be bothered to fly all the way back to base, I kind of want to enjoy flying, you know, and doing my own thing, then you have a bed. You can lie down and log off and you will be set, which is a fantastic thing. You also have your own little amenities cupboards and everything else along the line, but at this point, primarily, you're exploring, you're learning, you're doing. This is how this shit works, which is fantastic. And then finally, as we make our way into the cockpit... How fun would it be to own one? Indeed it be. So, going over to the cockpit, we also see, first of all, undisturbed view. No question. It is completely open, no struts or anything to blocking it, and the only thing that you would say that that's a bit of a problem or perhaps could be a bit of an issue is it doesn't give you much view looking down, which yes, that is something that you might have to take into account, which yeah, it sucks, you can't look down, but you know what, there are many ships in this game where you can't do that, and in real life as well with planes, you can't really look down either, so you know, it's not so bad. It also... It doesn't quite pass the MFD test, sadly, but if you press press and hold the F key and then use the you can see if I move my movement keys, you can actually look around. Actually, to be fair, what was funny was I actually found this out whilst doing a training session in one of the clan when BSI was doing a training event for all the new pilots. I just discovered this because I was mucking around. I was just like waiting for something. I was like, oh, you could do this, and like the trainer was like, what the fuck? A little bit of a good one, but yeah, the MFDs, they're okay. They do the job. Can I actually? Yeah, there you go. So, as said, the MFDs, this is an old style of console, sadly, so there are certain disadvantages towards it, mainly in the sense of they could probably do with redoing this or revitalizing this, but in terms of, like, control, this thing, it's simple in the sense that it doesn't give you too many things to look at, and of course your heads-up display here will also help you out a lot, but this is the only downside, I would say, with this ship, is that if you're a new player, you don't know what you're doing, then this could be a problem as well. But at the same time, it's not the end of the world. For, you know, there has to be at least something wrong with this ship. You can't just have it all your own way, which is fair enough on that one. But yeah, this particular ship is... It's the ship that I think I said, every player, if you're going to start Star Citizen, this is the best ship to start with because it is the most... It gives you the most options to start from. It gives you the most ability to start going in any direction. Do you like using cargo? Well, then great, we can upgrade you to another ship. Do you like doing combat? Well, great, there's another ship which you can upgrade to that is combat-based. Do you like being a bounty hunter? Great, there's another ship we can look into doing that sort of thing. It's all of those particular factors that makes this ship fantastic to utilize, and why, if anyone ever talks to me about Star Citizen and says, look, I might want to get into it, do you know any decent ships to talk about? My first port of call will say Avenger Titan. There are very few ships in the game that I would immediately, hand on my heart, just go immediate, like not even a brain thought level of just, no, you do this. The only thing I will say, to sort of round off this thing, is that as much as this ship is the definitive starter ship, there may be competition, because there are other ships now that are slowly creeping up on it. We almost had a bit of a challenge when the Nomad came out, but then that ship kind of fell to the wayside a little bit. But then, of course, we've got such ships as the Cutter, which, that's right, the Cutter. That's the ship that could be interesting. Not gonna lie, things could be it could be interesting from that. But anyway, we've rambled on enough about this beautiful ship. But yeah, Titan Avenger, beautiful ship, fantastic to work with. And going from one to the other, this one is the Avenger Stalker. This is the bounty hunting variant of the ship, which has basically a few different armaments. The same Mantis 220 on that one, but it has the Omniski guns on the side there, which they are Again, it's all gimbaled, so if you're wanting to increase your weapon loadout. But this particular variant is all about capturing people and arresting them, as you can see by all these little pods as well, which is fantastic. You have all these little tiny pods which are designed to house criminals who have surrendered to you. Same internals as before. You've got the bed, you've got the thing. So all in all, not that much of a different vessel, only that you don't have the cargo space anymore because that's being taken up with the evil doings of bad guys out there. The other difference, of course, is you have a couple of Ignite 2s instead of the... I think it's actually the same... Is it the same? No, they must be... Yeah, so you've got 2 Tempest 2s, which are these missiles, and you've got 2 Ignite 2s, which are over there. So... slightly different missile complements, different weapons loadout, no cargo space, but still a pretty good vessel nonetheless. And certainly, it certainly earns its reputation for being a nice little bounty hunting vessel. Again, a decent thing to start from. So, as we make our way over to the Avenger Warlock, you may think that this particular version doesn't look too dissimilar from the Stalker. You've got the same weapon, you've got the same mounts, everything kind of looks the same, right? Well, then you'd be wrong, because the moment you went into the back and expecting a cargo bay, you'd be seeing a pretty funky looking back area. This is, of course, an EMP generator. To quote the Urol website, it is a REP-8 EMP, size 4 EMP generator, and it can do a shitload of damage to electrical systems for quite a distance. In fact, there's a famous trailer coming out of this particular ship where a guy basically goes around Area 18 and completely blacks out an entire quadrant, which is quite hilarious, really. Or sector, blockhouse, whichever you want to describe the area of 18, it basically nukes that zone for quite some time. It nukes quite a large area of electronics, which, bit of a dick move, but it just shows off what kind of vessel this can do. So, the Warlock is a niche fighter. I've never seen this one in combat. I think it probably could be utilized to effectively bugger over a large portion of enemies, but I don't think that this vessel, for the armament that you would bring, and also don't forget the moment you do utilize this, it's a very large amount of power that you're consuming, meaning you'll be very vulnerable once you've decided to trigger that particular EMP, and you'll be on everyone's shit list as soon as that has popped. So definitely be aware, it could potentially result in some bad times for you. But if you're the kind of person who likes to fuck around and cause other people trouble, which you're out there, I know you are, then this vessel could be for you. Just remember, you'll be a target for everyone with a gun that doesn't require electronics. So going over to the last vessel in the group, this is the Avenger Titan Renegade, which is kind of just a snazzed up version. It's got some it's got a different kind of livery, which looks pretty okay. It's basically in remembrance to a person called Danny Solomon, for his notable work with the advocacy to bring justice to Bremen. So basically, it's a sort of memorial-style aircraft dedicated to a particular dude. This particular ship has the same loadout, Mantis 220, but its side mounts actually have the Great Sword, 10 series Great Sword ballistic cannon, which, I won't lie, these do look the part. They look amazing, and I love it. They almost look like sniper rifles, which probably they are. It looks amazing, and they also pack a pretty decent punch as well. They are ballistic, so this ship does have the problem that it is 100% reliant on ballistics, which carries that particular risk. And we have a couple of size... We have 2 size 2 Tempest 2s and 2 size Ignite 2s as well. Similar to the Stalker, but still. And then if we go inside, your cargo bay is more or less the same. The lift going into it is slightly different, but that's about it. It's just a snazzed up version of the Aegis Dynamics Titan series. So if you want a snazzed up version of the ship, which is available for limited times, then hey ho, congratulations, you've got one of the snazzed up versions. But to be honest with you, you can get the Titan Avenger normal edition and get the same, if not better, performance. The only thing I would say is that the Series 10 autocannons, not a bad choice to start with, but Apart from that, if you're a new player, just get the normal Titan Avenger. You'll thank me for it. As we wrap up our story on the Avenger Titan series, we of course cannot ignore the big, nasty, and pretty dominating ship in the room. This is the Aegis Redeemer. Now, fun fact, this particular ship was actually a community-built ship. Originally, it was meant to be a troop transport, which then evolved into a gunboat, or gunship. And it does look the part. I was very keen on it. In fact, I owned it for a time. And something tells me in the future I may end up re-owning it again because it is very, very useful. But what makes this ship so intriguing is, well, what makes this ship quite a unique vessel is that, of course, it has access to some of the best ballistics that are stock on the turrets, which are beautiful. These are, of course, the AD5Bs, which are the size 5. Fucking size 5. Beautiful weapons they are. Basically, these are the most bang for your buck, and they also have the most ammunition. Like, the Revenant will have, like, maybe 2,000 or 3,000 damage, and have, like, 2,000... like, the Revenant's series of guns will have X amount of damage. I don't know the size 5 edition's damage levels, but the size 5 will have maybe about a couple of hundred rounds, maybe 400 or 500 rounds at the most. The AD5B has 4,000, does 4,020, 220 damage, and has 5,000 rounds. Sorry, 5,200 rounds. That is really fucking impressive, isn't it? It is beautiful. And in terms of ballistics, the AD5Bs are one of the most amazing weapons to have. They used to not be available for sale as well, though I think now you can actually get them if you go to the custom craft shop on Horizon. But yeah, this whole ship is designed to provide supporting fire to anyone who goes into a combat zone. As I said, it used to be a troop transport ship. I think that was the original design process, but it evolved into something completely different. So in terms of like multi-crew gameplay as well, this is where I would say this ship could be a sort of challenger to the Hammerhead, because while the Hammerhead is designed for like 5, 6, 7 people in mind, this could easily fit a smaller crew of about 3 to 4, which seems to be more of the... If you had a bunch of friends playing alongside you, even a 1 to 2 man ship, this ship will still do quite well. If you have a crew of 3, then you're sorted, because, you know, you've got the pilot who has access to a limited amount of weapons, and then you've got the gunner who has access to a whole host of other weapons as well. So, in terms of cargo bay, this vessel has only a small amount of cargo, but it's not really meant to be a cargo bay sort of thing. You have access to a wardrobe, which is the internal storage. You've got the 2 living components. You do have the fridge as well, which used to not be openable, but now looks to be openable once again, which is fantastic, because you can actually... Can I store this? Fuck it, I'm stealing this. Fuck you, I'm having this. No wonder it's empty. Everyone's pilfered it. Oh, that's brilliant. Sorry. I just stole some shit from the fucking... Oh, that's brilliant. But yes, so you can access the 2 turrets on different segments. This lower turret over here, you can access from this point. And if you wanted to access the turret on the top, you can also access it up here. And go from here as well. You do have enough... There are chairs and seats. If you, for example, were to take a small squad of infantry, so you have 4 dudes here and 4 dudes chilling out in the beds downstairs, you could transport them and take them to the front line. So this could be considered a small gunship, but I wouldn't recommend this to be a dedicated gunship, transport vehicle role, because again, it's not really meant to do that. You can also have remote turret access as well, because if they're not I think you have one turret that focuses on the rear, but you can also have remote turrets that focuses on the front as well. Though if you don't have the remote turret being utilized by someone at the front, the pilot does gain access to that, which is pretty nice. In terms of visuals as well, the pilot does get access. So, like, you get some pretty decent access to it. Like, the visuals are pretty good. You've got a little bit of a blockage at the top there, but it's not the end of the world. And it is a pretty heavy-going fighter as well. It has also a 25 bubble defense all around, which can be quite useful if you're in the middle of the thick of it. In terms of weapons, it also has a pretty decent array of firepower. You've got gimbaled weapons basically at the front here, so if we look on down, you've got a couple of gimbaled here, or you've got a couple of weapons here, and then, was it C8778? Let me switch back up to the top, there we go. So we have access to C788, which are basically fixed heavy weapon daggers on the underwings there, which sadly don't have a gimbal mount. But I think the remote turret here, which normally can be accessed by a remote player, or if said player is not active, you can access it as a pilot, access the M5ABs, which are very nice. I think that's an awesome feature. Kind of wish you could also access some other weapons as well. Like, for example, if that turret is unmanned, you can't move it, but you can have an option to like set the trigger on for that one. That'll be pretty cool as well. But still, it's a nice vessel, and you do get the ability to look down as well. That little viewport there is actually something you can look around with. I mean, having used this particular vessel for quite a while, I can say that it's maneuverable. It feels a bit sluggish and heavy, but it is, you feel the weight of the armor, basically. You know that you're going for a good fight. And I said that, and to have AD5B stock is a very, very good thing. It is a very, very, very good ship to have those weapons as stock weapons. In terms of, like, combat ability as well, I'd say this is... It's not a ship that you can make as a daily flyer. I don't think you could run this solo, or at least I wouldn't advise that you run this solo. If you're playing with someone constantly, then yes, this is probably the best duo/trio ship style that we could run with. Like with my friends and I could easily run this ship with them, and this is the kind of thing for them. For stuff like the Hammerhead, may not always be in a position to use those weapons, so if I had to choose between the Redeemer or the Hammerhead, I probably would choose the Redeemer because I feel like we would get more out of it. But if I had a bunch of friends that were above, like if we had like more 4 or 5 friends, that oh my god, yes, it's the Hammerhead for sure. But as said, this particular ship has a pretty decent variety of weapons, and I almost forgot to mention the missiles as well. You do get some missiles. You get 16 Strike Force 2. So size 2 Strike Force 2 missiles. So not a bad array of weapons for a ship of this particular strength. I'm not going to lie. It's, in comparison to, let's say, other vessels, it could be, you may prefer their multi-role capabilities or multi-crew capabilities. But for combat bounty hunting missions, which is probably quite a common affair that you'll see the ship in, it does the role it needs to do very well, and most certainly deserves the respect of a decent multi-crew ship, and probably a good way to introduce someone to Star Citizen, to be fair. So, as we begin to wrap up the day, we are presented with, of course, the big bastard in the room, of course, that being the Aegis Reclaimer, the dedicated scrooper ship, which we won't go fully into because this episode is already a long episode. I'm feeling this is already going to be over an hour. So, what I will do instead is I will primarily showcase the Scroop deck, whereupon you'll be able to see all of the wondrous things, though I am seeing also something I've not seen before, which is that. And I'm thinking because the tractor beam, which is due to come in relatively soon, is going to be available. Oh, by the way, random tangent, but as this guy is pointing out in a very intriguing method, this is actually another way you can get into the ship, which is kind of cool. This is basically a little sort of docking port / salvage, which takes you straight up into the bridge area. So that's a really, really cool feature. So slight tangent, but something that just is important to note because obviously, if you don't know, you don't know. So the Reclaimer, as you can see, is fucking huge. Like, seriously, it is the biggest bastard of the lot, and definitely, at one point was considered to be the largest ship in the game. Unfortunately, due to in terms of measurements, the ship, the 890 Jump does beat it. But I'll be honest with you, the 890 Jump, while it does feel big, I do feel that the Reclaimer feels bigger, even if it's not technically bigger, which is fair. So you can get into the Reclaimer in a number of ways. First of all, you can use this very traditional, well, cargo lift to get in, and I think that's how it used to be for a long time, alongside that other little entrance. But you can now also enter via the docking collars as well, which, to be fair, that's probably the better option for you, considering how big this bloody ship is and how long these cargo bay doors take. Bearing in mind this is also the bog standard, like, this is the showroom edition, which is always a bit bugged in that regard. So what exactly is it about this ship that I am going to be talking about in depth? Well, this ship, as said, it's a scroop ship. It's not designed for combat. It's not designed for transport, at least transporting goods. It's designed to transport scroop, all the salvage you get from vessels all across the board. And what makes this thing really cool is that in addition to scrooping, you can also craft from the scroop. So how this system works is you go up to a wrecked ship, obviously soft death or what have you, and you get the mining, the scrooping lasers, and you scroop. You take all the materials from the ship, and eventually, as the scrooping or salvaging mechanics will be increased, you will be gaining all bits of scroop. You've got the components, it'll be the metal, all that jazz. Then what will happen is it'll be inserted into this little thing, which will only do 1 SEU's worth of. I'm kind of hoping in future updates they can increase the size of the scrooping machines here, or have more of them, so we don't have to have all of the so we don't have to just have 1 SEU's worth, because this is also available in the Vulture as well. But still, beside the point. So basically what these scrooping lasers will do is they will fill up these filler stations until there is 1 SEU's worth of cargo. It will then, if you wish to choose so, you can obviously automatically request it. So you can hit a button saying, yes, I'd like this to auto-eject when full, or no, I have an idea for it. Now, the reason why you might want to say no is because if you go to the crafting bay, you can actually see, oh, I probably shouldn't zoom, because obviously zooming is doom. But as you can see, you can actually scroll down the list, and you can see all of the different options. You can go from screw... You can actually craft the pyro multi-tool, the tractor beam attachment, the tractor beam, the scrooping attachment that you can add onto that, as well as an empty can, as well as a whole bunch of other stuff. It is quite a lot of things you can craft from just that one area. And obviously, as time goes by, we're going to be able to see more crafting abilities. So what makes this cool is that, so say for example, you're thinking, you know what, I don't want to craft anything, I've got all the shit I need, I just want to scroop. So once you've been scrooping all of your items, what will happen is this thing will automatically compress all the scroop you have into a box for SCU, and then your mates can basically, who will be down here, or you will have to come down here yourself, so I would recommend you do this as a solo. Basically, they get their tractor beams out, they pick up the box. You can do like 1 to 2 before you have to move it, but basically this thing ejects the box out, and then you plonk the box down here onto a cargo bay, and eventually in the distant future you will find yourself getting it all full. Now, scrooping does have a value because obviously, in addition to having components and modules being able to be salvaged and then put onto your ship to be sold later on, you could also just take the raw materials and sell them as either methods for helping construct your ship or repair your ship, because you can also use the scrooping device on your multi-tool to repair damaged parts of your vessel as well, which is a pretty cool thing. I like it. It's a pretty nifty little thing there. But the scrooping mechanics in Star Citizen, I think, have a lot of potential to do quite awesome things, because in addition to obviously repairing and selling and doing whatever to your ship, you could also use it for maybe crafting of buildings, perhaps? Wink, wink. Maybe you could be like, hey, look, it's a lesser decent quality of something, but you can make a prefab using the scroop we've made from a whole host of wrecks, meaning that you could easily have cheap buildings that you can run that maybe not have the benefits of an established building, but if you're attempting to hold a front line, or if you're wanting to build something, you can turn it into sort of basic materials that you can then use to craft other things as well. So all in all, I think the scroop mechanics will be very intriguing, and I'm very curious to see how this will fare in the future. Also, big pincers will eventually work as well. You'll be able to omnom, you'll be able to omnom any particular ship into tiny little pieces, and you can then feed the pieces to your scroop gods, or whatever particular deity you worship. I don't judge. And so the second day begins to draw to a close. But before we do, that's one last thing to have a look at, which is, of course, the holodeck, whereupon we look at all of the different vessels coming to availability. So the first thing we have a look at is the Vulcan, which I am quite keen on myself. Now, this is a repair vessel. Its sole purpose is literally to repair and resupply and refuel. It is really awesome. It'll have its own bunch of drones. There's a weapon here for some reason, also with a pistol on it, which makes me wonder. There's the undersuit. I kind of want to see what these are, just because I want to see if I can, you know, pop them in my inventory. But hey ho. So anyway, the Vulcan is a very nice looking ship. And it is, yeah, just medium repair, medium refuel. So it's designed simply just to go into a zone. It's like basically it's a support ship that we're not quite finished in. You know, the battle isn't quite over yet, but we do have enough time and resources to hopefully give some of the more grievously damaged ships a bit of a first aid kit, and then patch up towards it. You also have, of course, the these little side points here, which will have drones as well. So it won't just be the players using things, it'll actually be the drones coming along and fixing things as well, which I think is a really cool feature. So something to look forward to. I'm definitely one of those fans of that kind of playstyle, so that'll probably be a ship that I'll be probably investing in when that comes out. Ah, yes. Yes, Nautilus, is that it? Yes, Nautilus, yes. So the Nautilus, quite a famous little vessel. It's basically a mine layer. These little two prongs on the upper and lower sides, so upper and lower parts of the ship, basically eject mines, drones, and what was the third one? It was definitely mines that had. There are different types of mines. You obviously have the traditional mines, but you can also have drones as well that it sort of would automatically seek out targets. But I'm believing it's either mines or drones, but I'm also feeling that there's something else I'm missing on that one. But I don't think there is. No, it's actually, to be fair, I don't think there is. I think it is just mines and drones. So mainly, this particular vessel is designed to block an area off, denying access and providing the necessary support, providing the necessary breath of fresh air that most players who are currently dealing with a shitty situation may require in order to survive their next encounter. So something to keep an eye on. I myself am not a huge fan of this ship. You can see there's a couple of turrets on the side there, so it's definitely going to be a multi-crew style ship with its capacities to do some good stuff. I'm not overly keen on the Nautilus. I'm not a huge fan of mine layers. They're like, it's there, it's a thing. Meh. Sort of deal, but it does have some pretty impressive weaponry. You've got a couple of size 7 laser cannons on the front, and judging from the size of the turrets there, I'm going to assume either size 4, maybe even size 5s, but I'm thinking size 4 or size 3. Most likely size... I'd like to say size 4, but they also could put size 3s in. We won't know, but either way, this ship looks cool. I'm not going to deny it does have that kind of sleekness to it, but I'm not a huge fan of the mine-laying side of things anyway, so I'm afraid that's going to have to be it for that one. And, why isn't Idris here? This is already in the game. Like, it's not... Why is the Idris here? I don't understand. Like, we've got Idrises in the game. Fuck, I fought an Idris in this game. Well, it's puzzling, but this is the Idris, which is a small carrier vessel. It's kind of like a frigate, I'd say. Maybe, frigate. Not quite a destroyer, but definitely a frigate. So, what makes this ship really cool is two factors. First of all, it's not just a ship with a giant gun on the front, which does have a size 10 Mach gun, which is ridiculous. It also has the ability to transport about 3 Gladius-sized ships. So basically 3 small fighters, and basically act as a sort of patrolling vessel. Now, the variants that we will be encountering as players will not have the size 10 gun. I believe the size, the Idris P or the Idris C will not have the size 10 gun. It will instead have just these. It'll just have a variety of turrets and armaments, but The Idris M does in fact have the size 10 gun, which can do quite a bit of damage. There was an event, there's an event known as Xenothreat, which I fear now lives in infamy, but basically the combat in that in that particular mission, the Idris, the pirates, the terrorist group Xenothreat, have somehow gotten their hands on an Idris, and as a result, they are utilizing it to shoot at the Javelin. So this ship, even though it's a smallish ship when compared to the Javelin, it still packs quite a punch and can do quite a fair amount of damage if you have enough of them gathered together. So maybe this ship will be the ship that terrifies everyone because you'll see 4 or 5 of these things coming towards you, and you're like, I don't care if I'm in a Javelin. 5 hits from a size 10 gun means I'm dead. So definitely keep your eyes peeled for that, and it's a very nice looking ship, though I am puzzled as to why it's currently in the Great War. They're putting it into a grey box stage when it's already in the verse. We've seen it at an Invictus launch week, and we've seen it at an, I mean, I'll admit, we've not got player-controlled versions of the Idris, which maybe they're teasing that as a kind of a, hey, guess what we're putting in the game. But to be fair, if they do put that in the game, that's actually a pretty good choice to have, especially since Pyro is now going to become a thing, and since it's all lawless out there, having a dedicated platform to work from, in terms of like weapons and armament, yeah, no, I can see it. That's pretty cool. But still, that is a rather strange and a bit of an anticlimactic reveal of the holodecks today. But I think that's a good way to rant. I think as much as it's slightly sort of quick, it is kind of, yeah, we've seen it before. Nothing really adding anything to the Invictus, or nothing really different from the Invictus launch week. The Nautilus is in production, the other ship is in production, the Vulcan's in production, and the player version of the Idris is in production. So all in all, I'd say that's a pretty good roundup for today. So thank you all very much for watching. Probably a very long video. I'm hoping that you guys, if you have any sort of feedback or anything like that, do let me know in the comment section down below, clicking on the like button, and of course subscribing to the channel. I look forward to hearing your thoughts on a variety of things. I'm definitely going to pick up some of these ships today. Like I'm definitely going to be seeing what options there are in terms of ship availability. I was thinking the Saber, and maybe even looking at the Saber Comet in terms of like the view, the aesthetics, but also the Eclipse is kind of like an impulse that makes me want to go, maybe. Maybe. So we'll see. We will see. But I will hope to see you guys in the next episode, which will be all about, I can't remember. I think it's Crusader Day next on that one. So all Crusader related items, or is it Misc? Let me go have a look. See, it is in fact Crusader. I was right. So yes, it's going to be all about Crusader, which is going to be wonderful. And then we've got Origin. Well, at least Origin fucks off before all the other good ships come in. And Best Boys on the 22nd. Yeah! Anyway, I'll hope to catch you in for tomorrow's episode, which I'll be recording today, which will be Crusader Industries and Tumbril. So thank you also very much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. This is Mr. Jaeger, signing out.